I asked my dad to leave my wedding early because he showed up drunk. Okay, so here goes. I, 27F, just got married last weekend to my husband, 28M, and honestly, it was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. In so many ways, it was. The dress, the vows, the music, the people I love most in one place. But now when I think back, there's this one part that keeps replaying in my head over and over, and it's overshadowing everything else. From the outside, we probably looked like the picture-perfect family at the ceremony. My dad walked me down the aisle, something I dreamed of since I was a kid, and he managed to hold it together in that moment. I was nervous, emotional, so full of love for my husband, and also relieved that Dad had shown up on time, dressed nicely, and seemed okay. But the thing is, my dad has a long history with drinking. It's not every single day, and he has stretches where he's completely fine, but alcohol has been the shadow that follows him around, and by extension, follows the rest of us too. Growing up, there were times when he'd be the fun dad, cracking jokes, singing loudly in the car, bringing us candy after work. And then there were other times when the drinking would take over and he'd be sloppy, embarrassing, unpredictable. I remember being a teenager and begging him not to drink before school events or family dinners. Sometimes he listened, sometimes he didn't. So when it came to my wedding, I had this pit in my stomach for months leading up to it. I wanted so badly to believe that he could handle it, that for this one day, my day, he could put the drinking aside and just be present. He promised me he would. We even had a short but kind of awkward conversation a few weeks before the wedding where I said, "Please, Dad, just don't get drunk at the wedding. I need you there with me." And he laughed it off at first, but then said, "Of course, sweetheart, I wouldn't ruin your wedding." That's why what ended up happening is so hard for me to process, because in the moment, I reacted, maybe too strongly, maybe justifiably, and now I can't stop questioning myself. To really explain why this whole thing cuts so deep, I feel like I need to back up and give some context about my relationship with my dad. Because on the surface, it probably just looks like dad got drunk at wedding, bride kicked him out, which sounds harsh or even cruel. But underneath that moment is years and years of complicated history. My dad, when he's sober, is honestly one of the most charming, warm, charismatic people you'll ever meet. Growing up, he was the parent who always said yes to ice cream after dinner, who'd build blanket forts with us in the living room, who'd bring out the guitar and sing silly songs until my brothers and I couldn't stop laughing. He has this big, booming laugh that fills a room, and as a kid, that sound meant everything to me. But there was always another side, his drinking. Sometimes it was just a couple of beers at night, no big deal. Other times, especially at holidays or family events, it would escalate. He'd get louder, sloppier, more unpredictable. There were birthdays where he made a scene, dinners where he said embarrassing things, nights where I ended up crying in my room because my fun, goofy dad had turned into someone I didn't recognize. My parents divorced when I was about 14, and though they had other issues, I know my dad's drinking played a part. After the divorce, my relationship with him became the cycle. He'd promise me he was doing better, he'd show up sober and loving, and then the next time something important came around, I'd catch him stumbling over his words or smelling like whiskey. He always apologized after, and I always forgave him because he's my dad, and I wanted so badly for him to be in my life. There's this one memory that still stings. My high school graduation. He showed up late and tipsy, and I remember standing in line in my cap and gown, scanning the crowd for him. When I finally saw him, he was clapping too loudly, kind of swaying in place. And even though he hugged me after and told me how proud he was, I felt this pit of embarrassment because all my friends saw. I told myself then, okay, I'll forgive this, but he better not do this at my wedding. Fast forward to college, birthdays, even my engagement party last year. Little incidents kept piling up. Nothing that completely ruined the day, but enough that I started to dread every big milestone. It was like waiting for a bomb to go off. My fiance even noticed and gently asked me once, "Do you think your dad'll be okay at the wedding?" And I brushed it off, saying, "He has to be. It's my wedding. He knows how important this is." So, yeah, that's the backstory. A dad who I love deeply, who I know loves me too, but who has let me down more than I can count, which is why when he showed up at the wedding, a part of me was already holding my breath. Planning the wedding was this whirlwind of excitement and stress that I honestly think no one can really prepare you for. People joke about bridezillas and being obsessed with flowers or chair covers, but for me, the biggest stress wasn't about colors or seating charts. It was about whether my dad would make it through the day without embarrassing himself or me. Don't get me wrong, I was thrilled to be engaged. My fiancé proposed after 4 years together on a hiking trip, and it was perfect. We both wanted a wedding that was joyful and intimate, not over the top, but still special. We booked a beautiful venue, a rustic barn with string lights and big windows overlooking fields. I spent months scrolling Pinterest boards, obsessing over the little details. My mom and bridesmaids helped me pick my dress, which I cried when I tried it on because it just felt like me. But in the back of all that joy was this constant little voice in my head: what about dad? I tried to manage it proactively. A few months before the wedding, I sat down with him over coffee and told him point blank, "This is the most important day of my life so far, and I really, really need you to be there for me. Sober. Please don't get drunk at the wedding." He looked a little hurt at first, like I didn't trust him, and I felt guilty even saying it. But then he reached across the table, squeezed my hand, and said, "Sweetheart, don't worry. I would never ruin your wedding." And for a while, I believed him. Still, my anxiety leaked into planning. When I worked on the seating chart, I found myself putting my dad at a table with family members who I thought might manage him if needed. I told the bartender to cut people off if they seemed too drunk without naming names. I even asked my older brother privately if he could keep an eye on dad during the reception, just in case. My brother gave me this knowing look and said, "Yeah, I got him." Meanwhile, my mom and friends were so wrapped up in helping with dresses and showers and decor that I didn't share the full extent of my worry with them. I didn't want to sound like I was obsessed with dad's drinking. I wanted to be the glowing bride, not the stressed out daughter. And my fiance, bless him, tried to reassure me constantly. He said things like, "Even if your dad slips up, it won't ruin our day. We'll be married, and that's what matters." And I nodded and smiled, but deep down, I knew it would matter to me. I had been carrying the fear of this exact scenario since I was a teenager. So by the time the big day arrived, I felt this mix of pure joy and deep, gnawing dread. Everything looked perfect on the surface, but inside I was bracing myself. The morning of my wedding felt surreal. I woke up in the little Airbnb we'd rented near the venue, surrounded by my bridesmaids. There were mimosas, which I barely touched because I was too nervous, music playing softly, and a flurry of makeup brushes and curling irons. For a few precious hours, I let myself soak it in. The laughter of my best friends, the clicking of cameras, the weight of my dress when I finally stepped into it. But in the back of my mind, there was this countdown. When will dad arrive? What state will he be in? I didn't say anything to anyone that morning, but my stomach was in knots. My mom came by to see me in my dress before the ceremony, and she got teary-eyed. She told me how proud she was, how beautiful I looked, how she couldn't believe her little girl was getting married. It was one of those mother-daughter moments I'll never forget. But even as I hugged her, I couldn't stop wondering, has she seen dad yet? Is he okay? When my dad finally showed up at the venue, I was peeking out from the bridal suite window. He looked okay. He was in his suit, Hair combed, boutonniere pinned. From a distance, I couldn't tell if he'd been drinking, and honestly, I didn't want to know right then. I just wanted to hold on to the illusion that everything would be fine. The ceremony itself felt like a dream. My dad walked me down the aisle, arms steady, smiling. For that brief stretch of time, I felt like everything was going to be all right. He even whispered, "You look stunning, sweetheart," before handing me to my husband, and my heart nearly burst. The vows were beautiful. My husband cried. I cried. Everyone cried. When we kissed and the music played, I thought, this is it. We made it through the hardest part. Maybe Dad really will be okay tonight. Afterward, there was this whirlwind of hugs, photos, champagne glasses clinking. I saw Dad in the crowd laughing with my uncles, looking so proud. For a short while, I actually relaxed. I remember thinking, maybe I was worrying for nothing. Maybe this time he really will hold it together. But looking back now, I realize I was ignoring the little signs. The slightly glassy look in his eyes, the way his laugh carried just a little too loud, the fact that when we went to take family photos, he leaned a little heavier on my shoulder than usual. At the time, I brushed it off. Nerves, excitement, emotion. I told myself not to overanalyze. I wish I'd trusted my gut. Because as soon as we moved from the ceremony into the reception, things started to unravel. The reception kicked off with this electric energy. The barn was glowing with string lights, candles flickered on the tables, and the DJ played the perfect mix of upbeat songs while people found their seats. I remember looking around and thinking, this is exactly how I pictured it. People were laughing, clinking glasses, snapping photos. For a little while, I really let myself feel like the happiest bride alive. The first dances were beautiful. My husband and I swayed to our song, and I could feel every eye on us, but I only saw him. Then it was time for the father-daughter dance. This was the part I'd been most nervous about. But Dad actually pulled it off. He smiled, twirled me around, and even though he whispered something silly like, "Don't step on my toes, kiddo," it felt sweet and almost normal. People were tearing up, snapping photos, and in that moment, I thought, maybe we'll be okay. But as the night went on, little cracks started to show. At first, it was small things. Dad interrupting a conversation with a joke that fell flat, his voice just a little too loud, his cheeks a little too red. When the toast started, he clapped so loudly it startled people. He stood up halfway through my maid of honor speech and shouted, "That's my girl!" Which would have been cute if it hadn't been slurred just slightly. A couple of people chuckled politely, but I felt my stomach twist. I kept glancing at my brothers. My older brother gave me the subtle look like, he's on the edge. My younger brother looked embarrassed. My mom just pursed her lips and stayed quiet. I tried to convince myself it was fine. Maybe no one else really noticed. Maybe I was just hyper-focused because of my history with him. Then came the dance floor. At first, it was fun, Dad dancing with cousins, doing goofy moves that made people laugh. But soon his dancing got sloppy. His shirt came untucked, and he started grabbing people a little too roughly to pull them onto the floor. At one point, he almost knocked over a centerpiece when he stumbled back into a table. I felt my cheeks burning. I was torn between pretending it was fine and running over to fix everything. Guests were whispering, and I could see some of my new in-laws exchanging uncomfortable looks. My husband squeezed my hand and murmured, "Do you want me to step in?" And I just shook my head, too conflicted to decide. The breaking point for me came when he tried to give an impromptu speech. He grabbed the microphone from the DJ and started rambling about how proud he was, how no man would ever be good enough for me, while my husband stood right there, awkwardly smiling. He started crying halfway through, words slurring, and the whole room went silent. I wanted the ground to swallow me up. That was the moment I knew I couldn't ignore it anymore. Something had to be done. It's funny how fast a mood can shift. One minute, I was laughing with my bridesmaids on the dance floor. The next, I felt like I was standing under a spotlight while everyone held their breath, waiting to see what I'd do. After Dad's impromptu speech, the room tried to recover. The DJ awkwardly turned the music back on, people shuffled back to their seats, and my mom leaned over to whisper something sharp in his ear. He brushed her off with a wave and poured himself another drink at the bar. That's when I realized no one was cutting him off. I had been so worried about this exact situation that I thought I had taken precautions, but somehow he still had easy access to alcohol. It escalated quickly. Within an hour, Dad was slurring badly, stumbling across the dance floor, and cornering guests in conversations that they were clearly trying to escape from. He tried to dance with my maid of honor, spinning her so fast she almost fell, and she shot me this helpless look. Then he put his arm around my husband's grandmother, who was nearly 80, and started loudly telling her about how I was the light of his life while she looked terrified. I could feel the tension in the air. People weren't just noticing, they were uncomfortable. My in-laws, who had always been kind but a little formal, were staring with polite, frozen smiles. My bridesmaids were whispering to each other. Even the photographer caught my eye, like he wasn't sure if he should keep snapping pictures. And then came the final straw. During the cake cutting, Dad tried to make another moment. He staggered up to the table, loudly insisting he needed to say something important. I told him gently, "Dad, not now, please." But he kept going. He grabbed the knife from my husband's hand like it was some kind of joke, and the whole room gasped when it slipped and nearly fell. My heart stopped. My husband quickly caught it. Everyone laughed nervously, but inside I was burning with anger and shame. That's when my older brother pulled me aside. He said quietly, "You need to do something. He's not stopping." I could feel tears stinging my eyes because this was my wedding. I didn't want to be the one dealing with this, not tonight. But at the same time, it was my day, and I couldn't let it spiral further. So I took a deep breath, marched over, and asked Dad to step outside with me. He looked surprised, then kind of annoyed, but he followed. We walked out into the cool night air, away from the music and the stairs. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I might throw up. I said, "Dad, I love you, but you're too drunk. You're making people uncomfortable. I need you to leave." His face crumpled instantly. He went from defensive to hurt in seconds. "What? Sweetheart, it's my daughter's wedding. I'm celebrating. I'm fine." He swayed as he said it, which only proved my point. I shook my head, tears in my eyes. "No, you're not fine. Please, don't make this harder. I need you to leave." He got angry then, saying things like, "So I'm not good enough to be here after everything I've done for you?" And hearing that broke me, because part of me wanted to back down, to just let him stay, to avoid this awful confrontation. But another part of me, the part that had been dreading this moment for years, knew I couldn't. Finally, my older brother came out, put his hand on Dad's shoulder and said, "Come on, I'll drive you." He resisted at first, but eventually let himself be led away. The image of him walking off into the parking lot, shoulders slumped, will probably haunt me forever. And just like that, my dad was gone from my wedding. Walking back into the reception after asking my dad to leave felt like stepping onto a stage where everyone already knew the lines except me. The music was still playing, people were still eating cake, but I swear I could feel the shift in the air. My cheeks were hot, my chest tight, and for a second I just wanted to run back outside and sub. My husband was waiting by the dance floor. He saw my face and immediately wrapped his arms around me, whispering, "You did the right thing. Don't worry about anyone else. Just focus on us." I nodded, but inside, I felt like I was being torn in half. Half of me was relieved. The tension of waiting for Dad to cross another line was gone. But the other half felt this crushing guilt. I had actually asked my father, the man who raised me, to leave the most important day of my life. Some guests acted like nothing happened, which I appreciated. My bridesmaids pulled me back into dancing, cousins tried to joke around, and the DJ kept the energy up. But I noticed the glances. My aunt whispered something to my mom at their table. My younger brother looked pale, scrolling on his phone, probably texting friends about what just happened. My mother-in-law came up to me at one point and said gently, "Don't worry, sweetheart, everyone understands." And while I appreciated her kindness, it just confirmed that everyone had seen. The hardest part was when my mom approached me. She hugged me tight, but I could tell she was holding back her own emotions. She said softly, "You did what you had to do." Then she added, "I just hope he remembers tomorrow and doesn't blame you." That sentence stuck in my head like a thorn because she was right. Dad's memory when drinking isn't always clear. What if he woke up furious with me? What if this ruined us forever? Meanwhile, my husband did his best to protect me from questions. At one point, one of his uncles, who had been drinking too, but was more the happy drunk type, laughed and asked, "Where's the father of the bride?" My husband quickly redirected the conversation, but I caught the awkward silence that followed. I wanted to disappear. And yet, as the night went on, I forced myself back into bride mode. I smelled for photos, I danced, I thanked people for coming. Outwardly, I looked like a bride having the best night of her life. Inwardly, I was replaying that moment outside with my dad over and over, like a film stuck on loop. His shocked face, his words, "So I'm not good enough to be here?" The slump of his shoulders as he walked away. It wasn't the confrontation itself that broke me. It was the aftermath, knowing that everyone saw, that my wedding story now had this ugly chapter attached to it. I'd always imagined looking back on my wedding day with nothing but joy. But instead, it felt tainted. And I couldn't shake the feeling that maybe it was my fault. After my dad left, the night didn't stop. Weddings don't pause for your personal crises. The music kept blasting, people kept dancing, the bartender kept pouring drinks. From the outside, it probably looked like nothing had happened. But for me, every smile I gave, every laugh I forced out felt like it was pasted over a bruise. I tried. God, I tried so hard to shake it off. My husband pulled me onto the dance floor, and for a few songs, I let myself get lost in the twinkle lights and the sound of our friends singing along. My maid of honor shoved a shot glass into my hand at one point and said, "To your new life." And I threw it back, wincing at the burn, pretending like I was just another carefree bride. But my mind kept drifting. I'd look at my husband's family, his mom smiling politely, his dad chatting with relatives, and wonder what they were thinking about my dad. Did they pity me? Did they judge me? Did they think my family was messy, or worse, that I was messy by extension? I imagined them telling stories later. The wedding was lovely, but the bride's father... That thought made my stomach twist into knots. Meanwhile, my brothers were subdued. My younger brother mostly stuck to his friends, avoiding eye contact with me. My older brother stayed close, checking in with quick nods. But I could tell he felt guilty, like he should have prevented it or handled it sooner. My mom danced a little, but she kept retreating to her table, sipping water and watching me with this look that was equal parts proud and weary. At one point, I slipped into the bathroom just to breathe. I locked myself in a stall, sat down in my wedding dress, and stared at the tiles. I wanted to cry, but I also didn't want to ruin my makeup. So I just sat there, holding back tears, asking myself over and over, did I do the right thing? Should I have let him stay? Was I cruel? When I came out, one of my bridesmaids hugged me and said, "Don't let this take away from your night. You looked amazing out there." I nodded and smiled, but the truth was, it already had. By the time the reception wound down, I was exhausted. Not just physically, but emotionally. Guests hugged us goodbye, some of them saying, "It was such a beautiful wedding." And all I could think was, do they really mean it? Or are they just being polite because of the drama? Back at the hotel, my husband and I finally collapsed onto the bed. He wrapped me in his arms and said, "It's okay. He'll regret it tomorrow. But you and me, that's what matters." And I clung to him, trying to believe that. But in the dark, with the music from the venue still faint in the distance, All I could see was my dad's face as he walked away. It wasn't the ending I had pictured for my wedding night. Instead of drifting off in a glow of happiness, I fell asleep with a knot of guilt and grief in my chest. The morning after my wedding, I woke up in the hotel room with my new husband still sleeping beside me. The first thing I felt was this odd dissonance. I was supposed to feel like a glowing newlywed, basking in the afterglow of the best day ever. Instead, my stomach was heavy, and my first thought wasn't about the wedding night or the honeymoon. It was about my dad. I picked up my phone, and sure enough, there were messages. A few from relatives. "Beautiful wedding. Thank you for letting us be part of your day." One from my aunt that just said, "Call me when you can, heart." And then one from my dad, sent at 3 a.m. "I'm sorry. I love you. Please don't hate me." My heart sunk. I wanted to throw my phone across the room, but I also wanted to cry into it. That message was so him, remorseful but too late, apologizing after the damage already was done. I stared at it for a long time, unsure if I even wanted to respond. Throughout the next couple of days, the reactions trickled in. My older brother texted me, "You did the right thing. Don't let anyone make you second guess it." My younger brother, though, was more conflicted. He called me and said, "I mean, yeah, he was drunk, but did you really have to send him home? He just wanted to celebrate." That stung, because part of me agreed with him. My mom came over a day later to help pack for the honeymoon. She gave me a long hug and said, gently, "You handled it better than I would have. I'm proud of you for setting boundaries." But then she sighed and added, "You know how your dad is. He'll probably turn this into a story about how he was wronged." And that made my stomach twist even more. So, sure enough, by midweek, I got another text from my dad. This one wasn't apologetic. It said, "I can't believe you kicked me out of your own wedding. Do you know how humiliating that was? Everyone saw. You'll regret treating me like that one day." I felt like I'd been punched. My husband tried to take the phone from me, but I couldn't stop reading it over and over. Was he right? Did I humiliate him? Couldn't I have just let it go, just for one night? The hardest part was the silence from some family members. A couple of cousins who had been at the reception hadn't reached out at all, and I couldn't stop imagining their dinner table conversations. "Did you see what happened with her dad?" My inner critic filled in every blank with the worst possible assumptions. Meanwhile, my husband was my rock. He kept reminding me, "You protected yourself, you protected us. That's not wrong." But even as he said it, I couldn't shake the guilt. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Dad stumbling with the microphone, grabbing the cake knife, slurring his words. And then I saw his face in the parking lot, devastated. Instead of remembering the joy of my wedding night, I was stuck replaying the fallout. And the worst part was knowing this wasn't just about one night. This was about a lifetime of being let down, and the sinking feeling that maybe this time I had finally broken something that couldn't be fixed. It's been a little while since the wedding now, and instead of the happy glow I thought I'd be living in, I feel like I'm carrying this cloud of doubt everywhere I go. People keep asking me, "How was the wedding?" And I give the polite smile, say, "It was wonderful." But inside I'm screaming because yes, it was wonderful, except for this giant shadow that I can't shake.
My husband tells me I did the right thing. My mom backs me up. Even some friends have said, "Good for you for setting boundaries. You didn't deserve that on your wedding day." And logically, I know they're right. My dad was drunk. He was disruptive. He embarrassed me in front of everyone I love. If I hadn't stepped in, who knows what else could have happened? But emotionally, I feel awful. I keep thinking about his face when I told him he had to leave. The way his voice cracked when he said, "So I'm not good enough to be here?" I've played that moment back in my head 100 times, and every time I feel like the worst daughter in the world. And the thing is, part of me wonders if maybe I overreacted. Maybe I could have just ignored it or had someone quietly babysit him until the night ended. Maybe I could have let him give his stupid slurred speech and stumble through the evening without making it worse by sending him away. Maybe then I wouldn't be lying awake at night second-guessing myself. But another part of me, the part that's been carrying the weight of his drinking since I was a teenager, knows that this wasn't just about one night. This was about years of missed moments, ruined milestones, and promises broken. This was about finally drawing a line. And yet, even knowing that, the guilt still eats at me. I don't know what my dad and I will look like moving forward. He's been hot and cold since. One day apologetic, the next day defensive and angry. I haven't seen him in person yet, and honestly, I'm scared of what it'll be like when I do. I don't want this to be the story of my wedding. I don't want this to be the story of us, but I also can't undo what happened. So here I am, a brand new wife who should be over the moon, instead writing to strangers on the internet asking for perspective. Because I can't tell anymore. Did I go too far by asking my dad to leave my wedding? Should I have swallowed the embarrassment and just let him stay, even if it meant more chaos? Or was I right to protect myself, my husband, and my guests from a scene that was already spiraling? I feel terrible, but a part of me thinks I'm acting like a spoiled child for making my dad leave. So, am I the ass?